this far to leave us. He brought us out here to take us into the promised land. And I don't know why, and I've been talking to a few of you about this and just mentioned it this morning, but I've been feeling like God is telling us it's about time that we get ready to expand and just blow the walls out of this building. And Tish and I actually, believe it or not, went and looked at a piece of property earlier this week, and we're wondering how we can expand and put a big piece of a big building on this and all this kind of stuff, because I feel like that is coming. And so that's where we are. We're getting ready to claim our promised land. And so we need to make sure that we're ready. So if you turn to Joshua chapter 3, that's where we're going to start looking at. We're going to look at the kind of the preparation that leads up to go into the promised land. And I promise I'll try not to keep you here too long today. But I still want to cover a very awesome truth as we go through this. So if you look at Joshua chapter 3, we all know what took place in the promised land, right? When the walls came tumbling down and all this kind of stuff. Well, let's look at what happened before there. Joshua chapter 3, pick it up in verse 5. Let's read verse 5. It says, "And Joshua said to the people, 'Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you.'" Now, you can miss so much in that first scripture. So let's go back and think of what that's saying. What does sanctify mean? It means to set aside yourself for something God is getting ready to do. To set yourself aside for something holy. Joshua's telling these people, set yourselves aside for something holy, because the Lord is getting ready to do some amazing things through you guys tomorrow. Amen. And so let's start thinking this way. I want everybody in this room to start to think this way. Start to set yourselves aside. God's going to do something amazing if we let Him do it. And so what we need to do is we need to sanctify ourselves and get ready for what big is coming and what God's planning on doing. I don't care. We could have 10 people and it can stay 10 people for a lifetime, and God can still do huge and wonderful things through us. So I don't know how big He's going to grow us to, but I do know one thing. If we all sanctify ourselves, we'll see some wonders take place through everything that God's doing. So then let's continue on. In verse 6 it says, "So Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, 'Take up the ark of the covenant and pass before the people.' And they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. And the Lord said to Joshua," now the Lord's talking to Joshua here, He says, "This day I will begin to magnify you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. And you shall command the priests," he's continuing, the Lord's talking to him, "you shall command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when you are come to the brink of the water of Jordan, you shall stand in the Jordan." And so God tells them, He says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to tell the priests to come out and get in front of everybody, bring the ark out. And then what I want you to do is to tell them to go and stand in the river Jordan. Now, I don't know about you, but this already sounds like it's going to be an awesome story already. So let's continue going and see what happens. "And Joshua said to the children of Israel, 'Come hither and hear the words of the Lord.' And Joshua said, 'Hereby you shall know that the living God is among you.'" Joshua tells them a couple things here. He says, first thing you need to do is sanctify yourself. And then God starts talking to him, and God says, I'm going to go ahead and magnify you so they know that I am here and that I'm speaking through you, just like I did through Moses. And then Joshua says, I want you guys to gather around and hear the word of the Lord, because something big is getting ready to take place. And he says, "Hereby you shall know there is a living God among you." When you start to see the things that take place in the lives of the Christians around you, the ones that are sold out to serving God, that should inspire you to be more and to do more, because you'll see the amazing works of God in their lives. You will see it. And I've seen it time after time after time again. You can also see when people move away from God. And it's interesting, but he's saying, here's the deal. Something big is getting ready to occur. Now let's flip the page on mine. I have to flip the page. Verse 13, we're going to skip down a couple verses. It says, "And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the water of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand upon a heap," or they will stand on dry ground. He says, here's the deal. When the priests come out and the soles of their feet touch the water, now get that, because that's important. We're going to see why in a second. When the soles of their feet touch the water, they're going to stand on a heap. They will not stand in the water. The water is going to part. Does this sound familiar? Where else does the water part? The Red Sea, right? And through Moses, it's getting ready to part again. You know, the awesome thing about God is almost always He does things more than once, so you can't mistake it. And you know that He can do it. So this is really interesting. So he says, as soon as their feet touch the water, it's going to separate and they're going to be standing on a heap. And verse 14 says that it came to pass, when the people removed from their tents to pass over Jordan, and the priests bearing the Ark of the Covenant before the people. So now they pack up their tents, they get ready to go, they pile everything on, they move all their stuff, and they're getting ready to go. And it says, and as they that bear the ark were come to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water. Now watch this. For Jordan overflows all his banks in the time of harvest. Look at what God does. Let's stop this for a second. It didn't say when the river became a trickle. It said in the time that the water was its highest. In the time of harvest, when the Jordan River overflowed its banks, this is when they came to the water. Now think about how God likes to work. What do I say all the time? Does he like to work in the possible or in the impossible? So now he's working in the impossible again. This is a time when the water was its highest. This is a time when it overflowed its banks. And their feet, when their feet touched the what? The brim of the water. It doesn't say they had to walk down into the river because it was so high they couldn't even get to the river. When they came up and it was already overflowing on the bank and their feet just touched the brim of the water, guess what happens? Let's take a look. And the waters which came down from above stood and rose upon a heap very far from the city Adam that is beside Zeraton. And those that came down towards the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off. And the people passed over right against Jericho. So the thing is, when their feet touched it, it stopped and it built a heap up. So what's talking about here is the waters became a wall. They started to build a heap. They were backing up and they couldn't pass through. They failed, is what it says. It failed to pass through. So when their feet touched this water, it was exactly as God had said before it happened. How many of you can call that like that? Call a miracle before it even happens? I mean, it's incredible what he does. And so the water did exactly what they said it was going to do. And verse 17 says, and the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan, and all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over to Jordan. This sounds just like the story of the Red Sea. Here they are, they come to this water that would be very, very difficult to pass if they could pass it. And what does God do? He works a miracle. Not only do they pass over, they don't even get wet. That's awesome. I mean, you've got to imagine what this would be like, walking through the water and seeing the fish swim around beside you and it doesn't move. It's incredible. So here they are. They're crossing over the river. Now, it's incredible what takes place next. And it says in chapter 4, verse 1, it says, and it came to pass when all the people were clean passed over Jordan, that the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, take you 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe of man. So here, the Lord's talking to Joshua again. He says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take 12 people from each one of the tribes. And this is important. There's a reason why he does this. I want you to take one person from each tribe, and I want you to set them aside. And he says, and command them, saying, take you hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and you shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where you shall lodge this night. So he says, here's what I want you to do. I want you, now you've already crossed over. The priests are still in the water because they weren't going to leave until God told them to move out, or until Joshua told them to move out. So they're still in the water, and they all cross over. And then the Lord speaks to Joshua again and says, I want you to take 12 people, one person from every tribe, send them back down into the water again, and I want you to pick out 12 stones out of the middle of the bed of the river. Now there's an important reason for this. And Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared from the children of Israel out of every tribe of man, in verse 4. So he chooses the people out. And then verse 5 says, and Joshua said to them, pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of Jordan, or out into the middle of the Jordan River, and take you up every man a stone on his shoulder according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel. That this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their father in time to come, saying, what do these stones mean to you? Then you shall answer them, that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, when it passed over Jordan. The waters of Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be a memorial to the children of Israel forever. Think about this. When God does a miracle in your life, what happens all too often? We get down the road, right? And all of a sudden life gets a little bit hard. And now all of a sudden we start wondering, is God there? Does he really care? What's going on? And we start questioning everything. So the Lord told him, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back down into the river, not along the riverside. I want you to go into the midst of the river and pick out 12 stones and put them up as a memorial. So when your children ask, and your children's children ask, and their children ask, what are these stones for, Dad? You can say, these stones came from the time when God stopped the river Jordan so we could cross over. Why do you think all this is taking place? Because they need a little faith when they come to this big wall, right? I'm talking a wall that is actually... See, in the scriptures it talks about a wall, so sometimes we get confused and we think it's one wall. It's actually 3 walls. Archaeologists have dug up and found this thing to actually consist of 3 separate walls. There's a retaining wall on the outside, and there's dirt coming down to it, and then there's 2 other walls that are kind of connected, and all this kind of stuff. But there's actually technically 3 separate walls on the outside of Jordan. So they were going to have a lot of faith to go up against something like this. So God starts preparing them, and in addition to that says, even years to come down later, when your children find these rocks, I want them to look back and say, look how far God has brought us. He's taken us through the water. He's separated the water. He's done so many things. And, if God is for us, who can stand against us? How awesome is that? Amen. So, then it continues on and it says, then you shall answer them that these were the rocks that came out of the center of the Jordan, and this is a memorial. And the children of Israel, verse 8, did as Joshua commanded and took up 12 stones out of the midst of Jordan, as the Lord spoke to Jordan, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. So they go and they do exactly what he says. They take these rocks out. Verse 15 says, and the Lord, so we're skipping over a couple verses. Verse 15, and the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, command the priests that bear up the ark of the testament of the testimony, that they come up out of Jordan. So now he finally calls the priests up out of Jordan. After all this took place, and verse 17 says, Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, come up out of Jordan. And it came to pass when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord were come up out of the midst of Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up onto dry land, that the waters of Jordan returned to their place and flowed over all his banks as they did before. So once they come up out of the water, what takes place now? The water goes right back as if nothing had happened. It just starts flowing again, and so it's not like all of a sudden it was just this thing happened, and possibly it could be explained through science and all that. No, but as long as those priests' feet stayed in there, that water would not flow. And as soon as they came up out, it started flowing again. It wasn't like it was a fluke, like some bank just happened to the water pushed it there and all this kind of stuff. No, it was unexplainable. Here's the thing that I think a lot of times we as Christians too often do. We take things that are coincidences and try to name them as confirmation. And that's our mistake. See, here's the funny thing. A coincidence is anything that can be manipulated by man. And so we can take anything, any circumstance, and say, oh man, that's confirmation from God. And I see people sometimes take and throw this stuff around and just be like, that's confirmation, it's got to be. And so they start to throw this stuff around. No. Confirmation is when no man can do it and only God can do it. So when there's confirmation, when God's sending you confirmation, He will send you things that cannot happen and cannot be explained short of God Himself. I've seen times where people go into the doctor's office and they say, I got this problem and I need to be healed and all this kind of stuff. They go back later and the doctor says, there's no way to explain this other than the fact that God healed you. And that's incredible. And that is confirmation. Confirmation is not when you walk into a house and you say, I want to buy this house. You walk out in the garage and there's a picture of Jesus there. It's interesting because one time I met this realtor that actually happened to. And they said they met these people. And according to the new rules or whatever, you can't pick and choose where you want to take people to. You have to take them everywhere because this equal housing opportunity and all this stuff. So he had to take them everywhere according to the housing that they chose. And so when they get into this one house, the wife's walking around through the house. She falls in love with the house. She's like, this is such a beautiful house. I love this house. They go out in the garage and there's this picture of Jesus in the garage. And they're like, this has to be it because God, this is confirmation. God's telling us to be here. And the realtor's the whole time sitting there thinking in his head, if you knew the crime in this area, you would know that poster was put there so Jesus is telling you to open that garage door and run. And he's not telling you this is your home. But anyway, but he said I couldn't tell him that, but the whole time I'm sitting there thinking this in my head. But you know, it's interesting how sometimes we can take things and try to twist them into confirmation. Confirmation from God is something no man can do. And God will be doing that in your life if you serve God and you truly want to do what God's telling you to do. All right, the next thing is, where were we at now? And it says in verse 18, and it came to pass when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord were come up out of the water, out of the midst, the soles of the priest's feet were lifted up on the dry land. The waters returned. We already read that one. Verse 19 says, and the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. And these 12 stones which they took up out of Jordan did Joshua pitch in Gilgal. So they take these 12 stones that they had and they pitched them up there as a memorial of everything that God had done. Now I told you all of this to say something. I've already told you that we're getting ready to go into our promised land. I know it. I can sense it. I can feel it. I know God's going to do something big. I've talked to several of you in this church, and Diana being one of them, we had a long conversation about this. There's something bubbling under the surface. Something is getting ready to take place. I don't know what it is, but looking at this room today, I have a feeling it's coming already. Amen. So God is getting ready to do something huge. He has sent us the most awesome praise and worship team that lend their talent, not for praise on themselves, but for praise to God. And that's incredible. And you know, He's brought some other amazing talent in this place, so I know He's planning to do something big if we'll just get out of the way. So what I want to do is I want to go back and show you our 12 stones, if you want to call it that. So Tisha's going to prepare that, and I think she may already have it set up. All right, this is our 12 stones. So, if you want to call it that, there's a lot more than 12, but I want to show you some of the places that we've come from. This is our... Now imagine this. This is when we first started. We had 3 people show up our first Sunday. This was our sign frame. A PVC pipe sign frame. How awesome is that? And to see where God's brought us to from there to now. Okay, Tisha, the next one. All right, the next thing is, oh yeah, just get the next one. And actually, just take it out of there for a second when you go to the next one, because yeah, there you go. And then just slide it to the next one. Just hit the button. Yeah, there you go. All right, there's our sign. This is our first sign when we first started. Oh, you don't have to do that. That's okay. All right, this is our first sign, and it's interesting because that came in. All of our marketing materials had come in, and this is incredible. But this is nothing yet. Go to the next one. All right, now stop it. This here is incredible. And if any of you have been to our church back when we were in this building, you'll know what I'm talking about. You know how much we paid for this building here? Most of you that have been to the business meetings probably know this. You know how much we paid for this building? $700. You know how much we paid for this building? 5,000 square foot, the building we started off in. $400 when we first started. $400 a month. Now get this. We paid for these chairs. We had to buy these chairs. They don't come with anything. Have you ever went looking for real estate to rent space? It's expensive. This is one of the 12 stones. This is why I'm telling you this is one of the stones that we had. Not only did we have a 5,000 building that was $400 a month, they gave us the chairs, 8 wide, 9 deep, which is over 100 chairs that we had completely free. Didn't cost us anything. Those little tables in the back, we originally used those round ones when we first started, and I wish Pam was here. But after that, and I think you guys might remember those round chairs. Do you remember those? Do you remember those chairs, Rebecca? The round tables? Yeah. When we first started. And then we switched them. We asked him if we could get the square ones instead. He brought in a bunch of square tables. I don't remember how many we had. Probably close to 13, 14, 15 square tables. All of them were just provided for us, included in the rent. We didn't have to pay anything extra for them. This little box right here is the box that we use, is almost the same box we use. We use a better box than that now, to run all of our surround sound and everything through. It came over, there were speakers, the microphone, this little podium that we had, all was included in the rent. It was just given to us along with the building. And you imagine how that could possibly be. It's impossible, short of God. And God made this work, and we ended up with this huge building. How many of you actually went to that building and visited that building originally? Was that not an incredible building? Especially when you think of all the things that occurred. There's a big story behind it. It's way more than that. But I'll give you the shortened version today. So that's the shortened version of what took place with that building. All right, Tisha, you can go to the next one. All right, now I'll try to keep up with it. So if you want to, yeah, there you go. Just push that one. The middle one. There you go. All right, this is our first forms that we handed out, our first handouts that we handed out thousands of these and got very, very little return on them, but it was God's timing because He brought the right people at the right time. This is 2 different pictures, it's not all one. This is Tisha actually cleaning the glass, getting ready to open up. This is me mopping the floors, getting ready to start the church. Those speakers were the ones that were included with our in the price. This is our first movie night. How many of you, stop that real quick, Tisha. How many of you were at this movie night and remember this? Anybody in the room was at that movie night? The most awesome thing about this movie night is I think we had 6 or 7 men, and Tisha, we forgot to bring it, or did you bring it? With the movie Courageous, how many of you have seen the movie Courageous? How many of you have seen the form that you have to fill out, or seen them talk about that? Every man that was there in the room that night on Father's Day, because this was played for Father's Day, every single guy that was there that day filled out that form and hung it by the door of their house. We encouraged them to hang it at the door of their house. And it's incredible because you make a resolution to be the leader of your home and to lead your home in a godly manner. And there's a lot of stuff that you have to sign your name to. And it's absolutely incredible. So we may do that again this year. I don't know. We'll see. All right, next. All right, this is awesome. This is our first band. This was still in June. This was the first band that came to play for us. And Tisha, were they awesome or what? I mean, they came from all the way down to St. Pete, didn't charge us a dime to come and play for us. And at the time, Tisha and I were leading the praise and worship, and we're a dynamic duo, let me tell you. But I don't think you'd ever come back. If we were still leading the worship, I think you'd all run off and never come back. But the thing is, these people were nice enough, and God sent them from St. Pete to come and to actually play for us, and that was just incredible. It blew my mind. And they did a really, really good job. Didn't even charge us anything because, they just felt bad for us, I think, at that point. Because at that point, I don't know how many people we had. All right, go to the next one. All right, then we did the 4th of July potluck dinner. And I wish Pam was here because she was there. I think, Diana, yes, you were there. Holly and Ed were there. And so some of them were there. But this is the 4th of July. Now, picture this, is 1 month later. We started with 3. Tish, go to the next one. Look how many people were actually there. And here's Miss Pam. There's Holly and Ed. And there's Rebecca. And a few other people that were there. Don Straube was there. And obviously Tisha. Go to the next one. And there's Tisha again, showing her shirt off and everything. But we wanted everybody to dress patriotic, and a lot of people actually did. We put the flags up. We really had a good time. Wasn't that awesome? We had a great time there. Now go to the next one, Tisha. All right, this is the first wedding in the church. And that was Rebecca's daughter and son-in-law when they got married at our church, which was incredible. We did another wedding before this one, but they were outside of the church and just came in to get married in the church. And so we did their marriage, but this is the first one actually in the church, and that was awesome. All right. Then we had a Labor Day celebration another month later, because July 4th now to August 31st, well actually a month and a half, close. All right, go to the next one. Now look, it was awesome. It started growing. We had like 15, 20 people, if maybe a little bit more than that by then. And it was really, really awesome. This is Mark Chandler over here, who was our praise and worship team leader back then. All right. That made it go the other way. We can all stand on our heads. No, so this is another picture of it. All right, keep going. Yeah, just do that one. Well, anyway. All right, that's our, just let it go. This is our street ministry. We started a street ministry. Now, it was started before then, but it didn't actually officially have a name until after August. In the meantime, we were just going out, banging the streets. Me and Tisha and a few other people went out. Then we had our church-wide yard sale, which was September 27th, and we raised over almost $400 at that garage sale, which was able to help us with a lot of stuff. And we gave it away at almost a huge discounted prices. How many of you have heard of Rebecca Chase? She came and played with our church on October 26th, which was my birthday. And then later on, she came back again and played in December, and she was awesome and led our praise and worship team. This is one of our baptisms that we did. This is actually Stephanie in there getting baptized. We did some before this, but this Sunday, I think we did 9 baptisms that Sunday. And I mean, we had a ton of baptisms, so that's absolutely incredible. But this is our breakfast in the morning, which we still do, so our Sunday morning breakfast. And that was over at the old building, which was really neat. And those are the tables we went to, the square ones, so we could do that kind of stuff with it. All right, then in Christmas, Tisha did this Christmas is Christmas production, which was really cool. The kids had a lot of fun with it. Rebecca Chase was leading the praise and worship. So Rebecca Chase, came back for Christmas Sunday. There's our one of our banners that we got. This is the kids doing their Christmas play. But that banner that we got is a long story. We ended up buying that one. It was 16 foot long for our Christmas parade. And during the Christmas parade, this is the Christmas parade we did December 13th. It was through the West Pasco Chamber of Commerce. They gave us a good price, so we ended up joining them because of the Christmas parade. But because we ordered the one banner, the other guy gave us a 16-foot banner completely free, just because he said, I think you'll like this one better. I just want to donate it to the church. So we donated it to the church. This is the turnout for our Christmas parade. Then we started the Adopt a Senior ministry. Tisha had a heart for that and wanted to start that, and it's really, really been an awesome time. So you go twice a month and adopt a senior, and you get to spend some time with them, and it's so much fun. This is us actually teaching over there at the Orchard Ridge Assisted Living Facility. We do every first Sunday of the month. We actually go over there and run a service for them, so they get a chance to actually hear the Word of God, because a lot of them go, but they don't really, they call out and all kinds of stuff. This was our Business Development Week. How many of you remember that? A bunch of you were there. And we had a really good time, and we just kind of hand out thousands of flyers. Well, not thousands, but hundreds of flyers that weekend. Really good time. This is when we first moved here. Check this out. This is how we had it set up. We were actually set up over there. The podium was over there, and I was speaking out into the room this way. There was a wall in the middle of the room. It was a mess. This is what it looked like before we started. This is this wall. There were stations all along this wall, and the mirrors are still there behind the wall. We just decided it'd be easier when we go to move. We don't have to take the mirrors down and put them back up. And I had free labor, so God bless us with free labor. That's Stephanie. She wanted to help me paint. I let her go, and she really did. She took off and went to painting. And I know. So she had a good time. All right, this is our Spring into Summer Activities Fair. This was actually done just recently. This was in April 4th, the day before Easter. And we had an Easter egg hunt and all kinds of stuff. And we had a bounce house for the kids to play on. We had a big garage sale, which was really cool. It helped to offset the cost of the bounce house and all that kind of stuff. We bought a huge grill that's sitting out back so we could grill food and stuff for the church anytime we need to. And then we had this strange praise and worship team that showed up. And the guy over there on the saxophone, I'm not really sure what, but it was awesome. So they came and played music for us all day. We had neighbors coming by because of this, telling us, hey, we hear your music. This is actually Easter sunrise service. We did a sunrise service outside. They were practicing and getting ready underneath our little tents and stuff before we got ready to start. And that was awesome. That was such a fun time. There's Rebecca waving to everybody. And this is actually at our ribbon cutting ceremony with the West Pasco Chamber of Commerce, when they gave us the plaque and cut our ribbon for us. And we did our ribbon cutting ceremony through them. This is when I got mad at somebody and threw them through the wall. No. This is when I was putting a new door in for the youth room. This was the only entrance into the whole thing, and then you were just kind of cornered in the back. So we added a door back there so you get through. Then Diana came up and we decided to start the Women's Bible Study. It used to be every Saturday at 6. Now the time is different, but you can get with her if you want to go to the Women's Bible Study. It's awesome. This is some pictures of the Women's Bible Study. This was actually at Diana's house, correct?
Yeah.
So this was at her house. And they were just kind of having a good time over there, and they were just hanging out and having a great time. This is our weird praise and worship team that's really awesome. We love them so much. And we stick him in the corner because he's so crazy. But anyway, but this is our praise and worship team, and it's really, really awesome. And then this is a recent picture of the church when Bob and all that, Chaplain Bob and all that were here. So this is basically where we've come from. And now to think of all the stuff we've come through and everything we came over, and now we're celebrating our 1-year anniversary under God's amazing, incredible leadership. But in addition to that, it's technically really 2,000 years under the same leadership, and that is God.
Amen.
Because He's been running the church. He's been running the church as we know it for well over 2,000 years, but that's awesome and that's incredible. So I wanted to share that with you. I wanted to share that for a reason, because we talked about how they were getting ready to go into Jericho and they were picking out their 12 stones. There is way more than 12 stones. If we think about just those pictures and we think about all the things that God has done that were impossible, that God made possible. When we went to move to this chair, believe it or not, to this church here, we didn't have the money and the budget to go into this building. But we kept praying about it. And God made it happen. And then all of a sudden we came in here, the chairs, we ended up getting them ordered, get them delivered. They came right on time, didn't they? Who was here helping me unloading? You guys were. They came right on time. We got them unloaded, had them in here, had the whole place rehabbed so we could actually move in, got all the stuff off the wall. The owner of this building let us come in early and tear everything down, because if not, we would have had church our first Sunday in a salon. And that would have been kind of interesting. We got your hair fixed and everything but it was awesome. But it's incredible to think all that God's done. And then to think of the first church, when we first drove by it, Tisha and me both got this just overwhelming feeling like that's where we needed to be. And, we stopped in. You know how much they charge for rent at that building over there on a normal basis? $800 per day. If you don't believe me, Go stop and ask the guy how much he charges you to rent that building per day. Just go up there and ask him. He'll tell you they charge $800 per day. It's a long story how we ended up getting it for $400 a day, but it was just, it's incredible. And I can tell you how it happened. Simply by God only. There is no other way. And I told Tisha the other day, I said, I don't think that we'll find, and then I realized the mistake of my words, but I said, I don't think we'll get another deal like that in our entire lifetime. Not a 5,000 square foot building that was just built 3 years ago. With marble floors and big chandeliers, and I mean just all kinds of stuff. It's incredible to think. But you want to know something? Something like that will happen again one day. I know it because God is just that awesome. When we start to think there's no way that could ever happen again, it'll happen again. So God has done some incredible things. We have a lot of stones in our background that we need to constantly keep remembering where God has brought us through. He didn't bring us out this far to take us back again. He brought us out this far to take us into the promised land. And I absolutely believe that. And I know He is. And I know He has some amazing plans for this church. So the biggest thing that I can do at this point is get out of the way and let Him do His thing.